Hi guys, welcome to episode 49 of the Grapplers Academy. We're 1 week closer to being open. Hopefully we can get back to sort of training full time. And end of next Friday, quite an exciting card. You've got Martinez versus Burroughs, which even as a casual wrestling fan, that's an exciting match. And we were just talking about this before, like, is Burroughs going to retire, or if and when is he going to retire? And does he have the incentive to retire? Like, if he's making a good living and training and enjoying his lifestyle at the moment, I don't think that really incentivises him to retire, does it? And if he's able to perform at the top as well.
But he's still the athlete, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's literally got no reason to retire. But historically the problem with wrestling and those sorts of sports is that there's not been any way to make money.
No.
And probably not even making that much money from being an Olympic athlete. So it's good to see now that certain promoters are putting on shows where these athletes can stay around, make the money, and not just have to, not that there's anything wrong with going into coaching, but there's another route other than just going into coaching to make money if you still want to be competitive.
Yeah, like you can be paid to be an athlete, like in most of the high level sports now.
Yeah.
Like, and we were saying before, you're probably arguably making more money now doing these exhibition matches than he was as an Olympic athlete. Like, I think they have a livable wage. Look, from what I understand, they have like a livable salary, depending on the funding available to it. And that was why when Fox Hunter, that film came out, when that it's like that, basically the guy that invested into the wrestling team was such a big deal because they never had that kind of money put into wrestling in America, and we all know how that sort of went. But
great for everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's where the Juicy Boy squeeze was invented.
Yeah, it was, yeah. For those who don't know, this technique is a variation of the Schultz headlock, dubbed at the Juicy Boy squeeze or the Juicy squeeze, so you can keep your eyes out for that.
So if go and check out the video as well, because Sam shows you how to crush a watermelon with some body part, and it's juicy.
Thighs and watermelon might have been involved, so you know you've got to watch the video to find out.
Might have been ass juice too. I don't know, you have to watch it, don't give it away. That's how we're going to make the money on the OnlyFans. You and Craig Jones are going to make millions off OnlyFans.
Oh man, it's a bit of a strange one.
Those cycling shorts really show a lot, don't they?
That pic, like, I was not expecting that when I saw it. I was like, dude, fair play, but I won't be subscribing to that.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Yeah, don't subscribe to that. Yeah, you had a baguette down his cycling shorts, I think.
So they say.
So they say. I think Gabby Garcia had one as well, but that could have been something different. We're gone now, if we get this back on track. So yeah, the Juicy Squeeze is a technique that's going to be on the video upload this week as well. So yeah, go check that one out. Nobody's wearing cycling shorts, just throw that out there.
Not yet.
But yeah, you'll pay for that shit.
But,
back to wrestling.
But yeah, like, can we see Burroughs retiring anytime soon, or do you reckon he's got more to achieve in the sport?
Depends, doesn't it? Because is he going to go? I don't know what the Olympic squad is this year.
No, I've not even checked up.
So.
Or was it Matt? Did Dyke beat him? Dyke.
Are they in the same weight class?
I think they might be.
Because
I know he changed weight class, didn't he? To then he qualified.
I'm not sure on that. It's going ahead in like 6 weeks.
I think so.
The Olympics start on the 23rd of July, isn't it?
We're hoping that we have a host plan because I'll be looking forward to watching that.
And there's still Olympics. I like watching all the like shot putting and all that sort of stuff. But I just all those niche sports that you don't really watch on a weekly basis. Like, it's like fucking athletic. It's ridiculous. But yeah, like I don't. Depends, doesn't it? Because if he's going to go in and try and win another Olympic title, that probably adds more to his legacy.
Yeah.
Like I saw a good quote from Floyd Mayweather after this fight. He was like, you know, your kids can't eat legacy.
Yeah.
So you know, you're going to get paid.
Oh, 100%.
So I think Cal Sanderson did, after he came out of his wrestling career, didn't do anything to make money off the back of that, and then got that job at Penn State as the head wrestling coach. That's pretty much the route for most people coming out of wrestling, is get a job at a high school or a college if you've been at a good enough level to do that. But like we've said many times before, because you're a good athlete doesn't mean that you're a good coach.
No, very true.
So for those people who've not got those coaching skills, you need to still be able to make money, compete professionally and get paid for it. And the market's there for it now. I think there's a good crossover between, like I know Flow Grappling probably makes a lot of money Flow Wrestling makes a lot of money off their subscriptions. There's an audience space for it. There's always people filling the high school stadiums for the arenas, like the basketball courts normally, don't they?
Yeah.
There's always fucking loads of people watching.
Oh, yeah.
It's way more popular than like you fill a stadium every week in, week out for whatever is going on, and like way more attendance than jiu-jitsu. I don't know which one has a bigger buy-in for like people paying for pay-per-views and stuff.
I reckon it might be fairly equal, to be fair. Now the platform's there, and with how big a sport wrestling is, I think it'll be fairly equal.
Yeah, and it's good to see. So as long as the fighters are getting a good cut on that,
The fighters aren't getting any cut on that. Like,
or getting paid well.
At high school level and collegiate level, they don't get paid.
Oh, sorry, I mean for
the professional stuff.
The pay-per-views that like this fight coming up.
I hope they pay them well.
Yeah.
And even let the athletes who are making the content for these media providers get access to their own footage as well.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that you've put the show on, you've like filmed it and edited it and uploaded it, but without the athletes there'd be no content. And without your media platform, the athletes would still be competing and they'd still be training.
Yeah.
So you're just providing somewhere for people to watch it. Now, rightly so, return your money through the subscribers, but compensate the athletes and the fighters fairly. Like we were talking before with what you said about Oliveira, after his last fight, all he got from that, after all his taxes and expenses, was 20k, wasn't it?
Something like that.
Like, how can an organisation as big as the UFC justify that to one of their top athletes and potentially one of the top draws at the moment? Like, it's a livable wage, but there's other people doing a lot less, making a lot more.
Put it this way, this weekend just gone, Logan Paul fighting the greatest boxer of all time with a 0-1 record, making 20 million. It's entertainment at the end of the day. It's like, you know, they built up the fight through hype and promoted it well, and people want to buy it and watch it.
Yeah.
But they're not boxing fans.
No.
Boxing fans aren't watching that fight, and I'd probably even argue that boxing fans are going out of the way not to watch that match.
Oh, I've not watched it.
But it's just like casuals, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, YouTube generation, people who are interested in the celebrity personalities of the two athletes, not actually the boxing capability. And it seems to be a thing that we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks, but why the fuck is this so much of a bigger platform than people who can actually fight?
Because I reckon it's when they're drawing people in who can actually fight, when they're realising, actually, Woodley, for example, he's achieved a very good career. Like, what he's achieved in UFC is memorable. Like, I'll always have him down as one of my favourite fighters. I can't forget about the latter part of his career, because the way he dominated and the way he won his fights was entertaining to me. And I can fully understand why he'd go and fight one of these brothers to get a paycheck that's going to be bigger than what he probably did defending the UFC title.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's a nobody.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that somebody who's been as high a performer and the champion as Tyron Woodley has is banking on a retirement paycheck from fighting a fucking YouTuber.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
No. And it's all about the hype train that they can generate and the platform that they've got. Like, I don't know really anything about them, but from all the memes and stuff that I've seen popping up over the past week or just even after this weekend, they've been doing stuff on YouTube and whatever for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So they spent the time and built up their brand. I don't know a lot about them, but they built up the platform and the brand, and like, fair play to them. But it just is ridiculous that somebody who's got as good a skill set and legacy as Tyron Woodley has is having to go for something like that for a paycheck.
Yeah. Like, I understand it from from an entertainment perspective, like, but these fighters shouldn't have to be resorting to doing this to get fair pay.
Because if you look at the way that they do it in boxing, like, I don't know what the average fighter on the undercard gets versus the guys that are on the main shows, but the ones that you hear about in the media are getting like multi-million-dollar paydays for having these big fights.
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley is comparable to what Joshua or anybody else has done at that level in MMA as it is for boxing. So why is the pay not equivalent? Because the popularity of boxing is on the decline. The popularity of the UFC is on the rise. It's been probably the fastest growing sport in the last 20 years. Yeah. There's a lot of money in it. You always hear after the shows Dana White talking about the gate, the pay-per-views and all that sort of stuff. It's always in the millions, isn't it? And then you see, like, probably the biggest thing that you'd see for anybody who's not McGregor is like 400k or something like that. Yeah. So less than $500,000, and that's like a good payday. Oh, and then depending on the state that they're in, taxes get taken from that paycheck. Yeah. Then they've got to pay their fight camp, their coaches, their manager takes a fee, pre-expenses. So the manager's fee comes pre-taxes. So if they're getting 400k and their manager's on 15%, that's 60k. So if they get taxed 50%, they're already down to 140k before they've actually took a cut for themselves. I think the biggest difference between boxing and the UFC is that the boxing organisations are separate from the promoters. Yeah. Whereas the UFC is the promotion and the organisation. So, you know, I don't know how that affects the way that they choose to distribute all the actual power that they have over the athletes to dictate the contracts. But, you know, for the amount of money that the UFC is making, I really feel like the fighters need to be better compensated. Yeah. I think I don't think anything's going to come now that's going to be able to topple the UFC unless some state commission starts to have a governing MMA body that says, okay, here's our unified title. Now these promotions can host the title, but you don't own the fighters. Yeah. You have to pay the fighters to come on and get onto it. Like, it will disrupt everything, and a lot of companies will probably lose a lot of money. Yeah. But in the process, the fighters will get their rights back. They'll also earn more, and they'll get the chance to actually earn sponsorships again. Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences for boxing, looking at it on face value as well, is you look at these people that you hear about, the big fights, is their promoters or the managers or their agents have spent a couple of years giving them fights where they can build up a good win streak, where they're like 25-0, 30-0 or something like that, and that's what really when they start getting those big paydays, isn't it? Whereas it's arguably more exciting when you come into the UFC or Bellator or whatever. You're pretty much going to get thrown to the lions straight away. Yeah. You might have a couple of build-up fights if you come through, like you get a couple of professional wins in the UK, you manage to get onto the UFC card, you can build your way up. But at some point, you're going to be fighting somebody in the top 10 in the division, and it's going to be a tough fight. Yeah. And you might lose, and you don't get the opportunity to build up that winning streak. So I can see the argument both ways, because I think the UFC is more exciting because of that. Oh, of course, yeah. But it never lets you get to that point where you've got like, unless it's an athlete like Khabib who can do a 30-0 win streak. Yeah. And it's difficult to build up the character of because that's what a lot of the thing is, what's making a lot of money now with the boxing, and like HBO do it well with the behind the scenes stuff and Showtime. It's like you're building the story, aren't you?
Yeah.
UFC do it well with what's it called, embedded. So it's like painting that picture the week before the fight to get you to know the fighters, get you to buy into them and like know them as a character rather than just like, oh, this is this dude who fights. It's like judo tournaments or something like that.
Yeah.
Unless you're really into judo, and even then still, you probably don't know anything about the fighter outside of the tournament.
Yeah.
Which is why it's not as popular a sport, or kickboxing, or taekwondo, or whatever.
So one thing I'd be interested to know as well is, are the fighters compensated for that media that they do for the time?
Well, that's what I was thinking about the flow stuff as well for the wrestling, because they do a lot of pre-fight documentaries, sit-down talks, all that sort of stuff.
Like, are they sort of turning around to the fighters and saying, we're this big platform, you kind of need us, so you're going to do this for free? Or are they saying, we're equally beneficial partners here, we'll pay you to feature in this documentary or to feature in this short film? Like, because remember, was it Nate Diaz, or was it Nick Diaz who was just not turning up to press conferences, and he was making a point of he's taken away from his training time and he wasn't getting paid for it, so he's got no obligation to turn up to these media events.
Yeah.
Now, if they turned around and said, okay, in your contract here, for every media event you turn up for, here's 10k, here's 10k, here's 10k. Now, if you miss one, the next one drops down by 2.5k.
Yeah.
But then, if you do them consecutively, you get a 10% bump on each one. Like, something to incentivise and actually cover the costs of the fighter's time.
Yeah.
Like, they've got to get there. They've got to miss, it'll probably be about 2 or 3 days worth of training, because travelling, getting there, getting out, recovering from the day, recovering from the travelling, it takes a lot out of you. So how can you expect someone to do that for no compensation?
Yeah, I know it's a completely different thing, but you look at the way like the NFL is, and the players are contracted to the teams in a similar way that the fighters are contracted to the UFC.
Yeah.
They get paid to train, they get paid for the media obligations, they get the coaching paid for, nutrition paid for, all that sort of stuff.
And they're also getting multiples of millions of dollars per year for that. Whereas in the UFC, you'd be lucky to break $1 million.
Yeah.
Pre-taxes.
And going back to what we were talking about before about the wrestlers, you know, what a lot of those are looking for, from what you can see, like a lot of sports, is a sponsorship.
Yeah.
So you might get a Nike sponsorship or ASICS or something like that, and using these platforms to promote those products as well. And that's how you're making your sponsorship, because you might get a little bit more money from percentage of sales.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Like, you're not just an athlete, you've got to build your brand as well.
Yeah, because like when the fighters at press conferences, they've got a monster in front of them. Now the UFC pockets money for that.
Yeah.
But where's the fighter's share? Because the cameras are on the fighter to watch them talk, and you've placed a product in front of them that they may not even want to endorse. So
I think the guys who do Monster have a contract with Monster, don't they? Like, is Cerrone one of them? I
think it's a UFC
it's
contract.
It's not everybody though, is it? Like, not everybody's.
I'm not too sure.
I don't think everybody is a Monster sponsored athlete.
Oh, right.
I don't think. I know the Monster sponsors the UFC, but I don't think it gives that cut to every athlete as well. But
I'll have to look into that.
But yeah, it's another interesting thing, isn't it? Because it's like, you will promote our stuff, and that's it. Like, they've changed from Reebok now to Venom.
Yeah.
Whereas before, like, think about all the MMA brands that they used to be. Tap out, bro.
I wonder how many brands actually went under because of the UFC going, okay, we're only gonna work with Reebok now.
Yeah.
Like, the amount of jobs that could have cost.
Who's a big one now that, like, is still probably Hayabusa is probably there.
But they've declined.
What were all the old ones like? Tap Out, Affliction, Sprawl.
Oh wow, yeah.
Clinch Gear.
Cage Steel.
Yeah. Hayabusa was a big one because of George St. Pierre.
Bad Boy. They're still around, but they've gone more grappling now, aren't they? Like Sandy for the gloves. Even Venom, like I'm sure because they went through a bit of a decline before they've come back, because I've noticed that they've done more with like jiu-jitsu and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like people used to buy into those products because they like the fighter.
Yeah.
Like you remember Dethrone?
Yeah.
And McGregor had some sort of dealing with them, didn't they? They had a decent line of t-shirts out that people bought when like McGregor was just coming to the UFC. So.
And I'm not gonna lie, like I don't remember buying anything Reebok because it was UFC related.
Yeah.
Because none of it appealed to me.
Yeah.
Whereas I did buy training gear and products because I saw a fighter wearing a certain set of shorts. Like I bought a pair of shorts I saw GSP wearing. I bought rash guards because I saw people training in them. Like it has a bigger trickle down effect than I think the UFC probably wants to admit.
Did he care?
Probably not, because their pockets have still been lined.
Yeah.
Like the whole USADA thing, bringing it in. Like I remember reading this years ago. The theory behind them bringing USADA in and Reebok in was because on paper it made the company more valuable. Now they didn't account for the change of performance, because obviously drug testing gets stricter. It is going to affect the fighters. Look at Vitor Belfort before and after, for example. Allegedly.
Don't know what you're on about.
And it made the company more valuable, and then within 12 months of these changes coming in, Zuffa sold the UFC, and then since it's been sold, it has gone on a decline. There's been really oversaturated the market with events. Like I understand it, they've got a lot of fighters on the roster and they want to churn out all these events, and they've probably got contractual obligations with ESPN and things like that to get these events out. But it is difficult now to get excited for a fight card when there's one every other week. Whereas with boxing, the big cards are at least, like, at most, probably once a month.
There's too much. Like, if they're looking at it from the point of view of like, oh, we need to compete with basketball because it's on ESPN, we need an event out every week. And there's a lot of fighters, but it's tough to have all of those fighters have the level of popularity that the big champions are having.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a dangerous sport. You can't have people fighting every couple of months. It takes a lot of time to train. There's a high risk of injury, like serious injury. So to be able to churn out that level of high performance is difficult.
Yeah.
And like you just said, you know, back in the day, you used to get a UFC once a month.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And it was exciting. And I remember feeling like, fucking hell, when's the next event on? Like, I want to see it. And then it'd be Chuck Liddell versus Randy Couture. You'd be like, fucking man.
Yeah.
But now it's like, it's like, oh, which UFC's on this weekend?
Yeah.
Not everybody's talking about that one big fight that's coming up.
And then they'll be like, the one not on that weekend for whatever reason, kind of like, oh, I thought that was one on.
Yeah.
I'll just check next week.
Yeah.
Where, like, for me, if I was in charge, I'd split the UFC into two businesses. So you've got your UFC main events, and then kind of like what WWE's done with the NXT, you've got your feeder division where you can have small events every week, and then if someone gets a title, like the way they used Strikeforce, someone gets champion of Strikeforce, it's very likely they're going to get a UFC contract.
Yeah.
And having these feeder divisions filtering up to the Premier League, which UFC, but having Division 3, Division 2, Division 1 makes sense, because your amateurs, your new pros, your pros needing experience, and your championship pros, you can have fights every week in the amateurs because there's a lot of them, and you can stream them on apps. You don't need to watch them on TV. Pros need an experience, and pros, sort of just newly turned pros, you probably merge that into one event. And with the number of them happening and the ones that are prospectively talented, you could probably have an event every fortnight, and then you can go back to UFC being the big prize. Like, I remember now that when UFC contracts were being talked about amongst fighters, it's like, this is the big deal. Whereas now it's sort of, fighters are turning pro and they're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to think about going to one, I might go to Bellator, I might have a look at, is it Pride, the other one? Not the Japanese Pride, right? The one that's in, I think it's Bahrain. Brave, yeah, Brave, that's the one. I might not be Bahrain, but it's, but there's a lot more options for the fighters, so it kind of takes away again that excitement of a UFC event.
It would be really tough to do something like this, but having something like a league. I tell you what I do enjoy watching, or like getting bought into, is the Bellator tournaments.
Yes.
Like, why can't you just have that for every weight division in the UFC? I'd be more excited to see that.
Yeah.
And
then the winner fights the champion.
There's a tie-in over 12 months. You're getting it's not all on the same night like it used to be when it was basically you have 4 fights in a night, which is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that.
No.
Like, I kind of do want to see it because it's exciting. Like a kickboxing tournament, like it's exciting.
Yeah.
But you could have had a nasty fight, and then your opponent's like pretty much got a first round knockout, and then you're coming in again twice more. I don't know how I feel about that, but I do really like the idea of the Bellator tournaments, like the heavyweight Grand Prix tournament. It's cool. I would watch that for every division.
Yeah.
And let's say there's 16 fighters in each tournament, and you use the amateurs or the lower leagues to qualify for one of these tournaments. You know they come around every 12 months, and for the 12 months that you're not on it, you're building up points by fighting 3-4 times a year in the leagues, and then you're putting yourself at the top of the pecking order to get into that next 16.
That's like similar to PFL, isn't it?
Yep.
And they've got a lot of talent, and they've also got a lot of really good events and really good fights.
Yeah, they get a decent payday on that, don't they?
I think they get $1 million if they win the tournament.
But then the argument would be like, what are you getting paid if you're not winning?
Well, I think they get
because it's that same time.
I think they get paid per fight.
Yeah.
And then if they win the league, then they get $1 million at the end of that.
And I think like a big organisation like the UFC could get a good buy-in like that from selling the story over 12 months, like the same way that people buy into a football season.
Because you get attached to the people that you're following, so you'll follow one fighter specifically.
Yeah.
So you have your hometown hero or somebody from your country that you're gonna be like, I want this guy to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that. I'm just looking at the time because I think we're going to run out of memory on that.
Yeah,
there,
true.
aren't we?
Yeah, we'll wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap up. Let us know what you like, what you want to see in the comments, like tournament or league style, or you just want to see people knock each other out every fucking week.
And let us know if you agree with what we're saying about like events feeling less special now and being a bit oversaturated, or if you're thinking, or if you're a fan that really enjoys the frequency.
Yeah.
Hit us up at the Grapplers Academy, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Make sure you click like and subscribe. Bonafide PT, coached by Si. We'll see you next week.